So now, as this new person, making this transition into being a mom of 2 and still having a career and being a wife, how do I do that smoothly? Hi, my loves. I am back. If you are new here, I'm Tiffany Laban Spence. I talk all things healing, bettering yourself, and how to show up as your highest self. Okay, so where do we start? It's been 2 months since we last talked to each other. You are going to hear my air in the back. I have to warn you because the baby is here. We cannot turn it off, and it is like 30 degrees outside, less than that, I think. So I definitely wanted to start by updating you guys with how the last 2 months of postpartum has been and going into deep detail about my birthing story. I am so excited to share this with you. I had a home birth. I'm not sure if I shared that. I was keeping it on the hush because when you say home birth, people have a lot to say. They have a lot of emotions. They have a lot of opinions. So I was keeping it to myself, but I did have an unmedicated home birth and I am so excited to share. But before we dive into that, I definitely want to touch base, go back a little bit to my first birth and let you know why this birth is so important. I'm going to link right here my first birthing story. I was in a much different headspace at that time. Again, I did not have the birth of my dreams, and leading up to it, it was a lot of fighting doctors and really having to advocate for myself, which is something we all should do, but like, why do we need to fight if we don't want certain things? Why do we need to feel like we need to defend ourselves? And it was a little different, and you'll feel that energy. Whenever I watch it back, I can feel my energy back then. It was just different than it is now. I struggled last time to make that transition from being just me to having a child and managing a business and working and managing my relationships. I really struggled. I know for sure I had postpartum anxiety. If you experience anxiety before having a child, it is highly likely you're going to experience postpartum anxiety. It just heightens it. Now you have this little person you're worried about, right? And so I struggled to make that life transition. So this time around, I wanted to do something proactively. I decided to get a personal coach. The difference between personal coaching and therapy. In the past, I've done a lot of therapy to heal, to get through the traumas and to look back and see what made me the way that I am now. But personal coaching is very aligned with what we're going to do this season, which is like look forward. We're going to look at who we want to be and how we get there rather than only looking at the past and healing. Of course, we're still going to do that because there's still so much we have to talk about. But I definitely want us to look forward and to look at the person we want to be. Think of what opportunities there are to grow. I always like an outside perspective of things that I can't see. I feel like we have blinders on. Like I can easily talk to you guys and say this, and this. But sometimes when I'm giving the advice to myself, it is very different. And you have these blinders that you can't see. So I think I have a lot of insight as to why I am who I am now. I feel really confident in that. And I feel confident in the ways that I have grown, right? So now, as this new person, making this transition into being a mom of 2 and still having a career and being a wife, how do I do that smoothly, more smoothly than I did last time? So our sponsor today is strawberry.me, and they're a virtual personal coaching site. I was matched with my coach, Amy, but as of now, we've had 2 calls. So far, she's helped me to realize that I'm an all or nothing person. I'm either all in, going really hard, and I'm pumping out 1,000 videos and I'm on it. But once I feel like I can't keep up to that standard, I tend to like shy away and like hide away. I felt like I just couldn't keep up this pace. And she's like, why do you have to do that? You don't have to be 100% all the time. I feel like I've said that to you 1,000 times, but people have a hard time taking their own advice, right? And so she's helped me to realize I don't have to be at 100 all the time. On the days that it's hard, on the days that the baby's having a hard day, that I'm just not mentally there, right? I'm allowed to show up at 50% if 50% is my best for that day, but not to completely isolate when I'm not feeling 1,000%. And like I said, we've done so much work here on healing and looking backward and healing the traumas and trying to become the person that we want to be. Personal coaching is a good way to help us move forward and helping and guiding us practically on ways we're showing up that don't align with who we want to be, and the ways that we can show up that align with exactly who we want to be, the ways that we can show up to become that person, to step into the world as that person and not only talk about it, but actually do it. Strawberry.me is extremely easy to use and all the coaches are certified. I want you to think of a personal coach membership as an investment into yourself. And the memberships are flexible depending on if you have short-term goals that you just want a session or two, or if you have long-term goals. You can cater your membership to exactly what you need. So if you are ready to take this next step with me in becoming the highest version of ourselves, just take a short quiz on strawberry.me to get matched with a certified coach that is tailored to you, your goals, goals and your needs. It is time to move forward and take the steps necessary to create the exciting life that we keep talking about. And that starts by investing in your growth to become the person that you want to be. Visit strawberry.me/TiffanyTV and start your transformation today. As I mentioned, I'm still working with my coach, so I promise to come back and give you an in-depth review of how it's going and what we discussed and the differences that I've seen. All right, let me get comfortable. Let me dive in. Some of you may have been here since my first son was born. I feel like 4 years ago was just such a long time ago. It was just such a different time. You may hear the baby crying in the background. She's with her daddy. She's okay. And he will bring her up here if she needs me. I am still exclusively breastfeeding, so she may come, and she's going through a leap. 4 years ago felt like such a different time, and it was because it was COVID. We were in a pandemic, and even though I planned on having an unmedicated birth, I was unsure if I wanted a home birth or a birthing center birth. One, because the times were so scary, and there wasn't a lot of offerings for like people coming to your house and coming in. And with home birthing, like this time around, my midwife had to come to my house consistently, and she was visiting other people. And also, it was my first time becoming a mom. Oh my God. All right, so we have a guest with us. She does not want daddy to calm her down, and every time that I feed her and put her down, she pops back up. So let's try to jump into this. Hopefully baby girl allows us to get done. I don't know if you guys can see these rolls. This baby is chunky, okay? Just yummy. This is mom of two life, mom with a newborn, exclusively breastfeeding, trying to get her on a bottle. She's not having it yet, but so yes, my first experience was very different. I wanted to have an unmedicated birth. I hired my doula, but she was in Texas still. I'm in Philadelphia. So she was all virtual services. And because, again, it was COVID at that time, I wasn't even sure if my husband would be able to come to the hospital with me. Because it was my first baby, you know, I hadn't experienced anything before, and just all this was going on. I didn't want to be at home and something go wrong. I have to get to the hospital, and we call an ambulance. And during the time of COVID, we just don't know what the responses were. And so I opted for the hospital birth, but I still wanted an unmedicated birth, and I still made a birth plan where there were certain interventions that I didn't want. Long story short, I ended up having an epidural, ended up having a 2nd-degree tear. It was just a different mindset. I knew that for my next pregnancy that I wanted to do my best to prepare my mind, my body, and my spirit for a home birth or a birth at a birthing center. But here in Philadelphia, we only have one birthing center in our area, and that's actually outside of Philadelphia. And when I talked to that birthing center, they came off really hospitally. Like, I didn't get the best feel. It just felt very not personal, which is the goal I was going for this time around. So I hired my doula again, who has become family. I will also link the video I did with my doula, just talking about birth and advocating for yourself. I'll link that here as well. What I did throughout my pregnancy to prepare was talk to my doula. I had kind of like a recap on hypnobirthing, and again, we talk about all that in that video there. I went to the chiropractor regularly. The chiropractor is really good for aligning your hips and like opening up your hips, making sure things are as aligned as they can be and as flexible as they can be, so that baby can come down easy. I did not work out as much as I wanted to. I didn't do curb walking as much as I wanted to, but I did drink my raspberry tea very, very often, a few cups a day. I did dates for about a good month or so. One of the major differences I feel was doing chiropractor work. Literally the day before I went into labor, I went for my last chiropractic appointment. She'll usually take my leg, put it up straight and bend it back to stretch my hamstrings. And she was like, "You are so flexible right now. I'm not even going to push anything." There's a chemical that releases in our body called relaxin. I believe it's relaxin, and it's released into our bodies when we are about to have a baby so that our joints are a little more flexible. Well, it was completely throughout my body because she went to stretch me and I was so flexible. But I do feel like that regular alignment and relaxing of my body, releasing that air from my joint, definitely helped. I can't fully say that it would have made all the difference the first time around because, you know, having your first baby and having your second is different. Your body knows muscle memory, and so it may be a little smoother. And so I experienced that this time around. It really could have been second baby, but I also think it's just mentally preparing because things did get intense. Now, let's get into this story. So on Friday, November 22nd, I woke up and I realized I had my bloody show. So your bloody show is like that pinkish discharge that you experience when your body is about to go into labor or when you're starting labor. So this was at like 8 a.m. on that Friday. And it's funny because I woke up right before that and I was so peaceful just laying in my bed, and I was actually awake when I felt it. And I went to the bathroom so calm, and I was like, okay, I think it's starting. My doula had a ticket to fly in the next day on November 23rd. And so I called her, let her know, and she's like, okay, well, I'm changing my ticket right now and I will be there today. So I told you this was at 8 a.m. The few days before that, I was experiencing Braxton Hicks. I think they were actual contractions because I had like a few that were intense that made me stop, but nothing was regular. I think I spoke to you guys before about endometriosis. I was treated for endometriosis from the time I was 17 to 29, but from the years of 14 through 17, I suffered with endometriosis without knowing that I had it. If you know about endometriosis or if you ever have had it, you know that it is the most painful thing ever. Okay, I would bleed for almost 2 weeks. I would have a heavy period for 7 days to 10 days, like heavy. And the cramps were like, I would feel lightheaded sometimes. My friend had it and she passed out before. So like, yeah, it is very intense. Now, I think my experience of that made my contractions not feel so crazy to me. That's crazy to say that it compares, but it compares. So throughout the day, I'm literally cleaning up my house. All the things that you put off and keep saying, I'm gonna do it. Me and my husband got done in that day. When I say the room was spick and span, the house was spick and span, everything was put away, had a place. There's something about knowing that baby is really coming that gets you moving. So thank God my labor didn't progress fast or anything. It happened gradually throughout the day. I was technically in labor for 24 hours, but I think people should break that down when they talk about they were in labor for 24 hours. Now, I don't know if everybody's experience is like this, but for me, my first 12 to yes, baby, my first 12 to 16 hours of labor wasn't very intense. Like, I was still walking around cleaning. I was still doing things. I opened the door for when my doula got here at 4 p.m. You know, and when she came, we watched funny movies. We were like laughing. We stayed on the couch. My husband came up to get some sleep because we knew it was going to happen. It was my contractions were getting closer. She started to monitor them, but it was to the point where I would have a contraction, stop talking, and then come back, and we'd be laughing and talking. I was chilling throughout the day. I really was. I would say around midnight, 1 a.m. is when I started to feel like they were getting to the point where I didn't want to talk at all. Like, I didn't want to laugh. I just wanted to be quiet during my contractions. My doula brought something called a TENS machine or a TENS unit. If you don't know about this, if you plan on having another baby, or even if you have bad cramps and things, this thing was amazing. Now, she got one that was specifically for labor. They are made for like sports injuries and things like that. You put these patches on you and it provides like a shock wave through your muscles. So she put them on my back when my cramps started to intensify. And when I say this wave of pulses that it sends through your body, it took so much of the pressure off of the contractions. Like, if you know anything about laboring in your back, it can be very, very painful. I feel like this machine took the laboring out of my back. It didn't completely make it go away. Of course, you still feel the intensity, but I can't even explain it. So I'm gonna link that here for sure. And if you plan on having another baby or you have cramps, try this. Any injuries or pains, try this. When I say it changed the game, I was almost mad at her for not making me get one the first time. So I had this TENS machine on. It's starting at like midnight. From 12 to like 2, it's getting really intense. So now I'm letting my mom know, yeah, I'm in full-blown labor. We call my midwife. We let her know what's going on. Now the contractions are getting like 5 minutes apart. They're getting really close. So when my midwife gets there around 3 a.m., 4, she checks my cervix to see where I'm at. She says I'm 50% effaced. She wants to see more progress. So she's like, here's a couple things you can do. Sit on the toilet, usually backwards. You can like lay, put your arms down and just relax, because a lot of times people's bodies relax on toilets, obviously, because that's where we go to the bathroom, right? So that's where our body tends to relax. A lot of people give birth on toilets. I didn't know that, but I see why, because your body does relax. So I sat backwards on the toilet, and she also recommended that I start nipple stimulation. So I started nipple stimulation, and I would say I was there for about 20 minutes, maybe half hour. Those contractions started coming crazy. Okay, so at this point now I get up, and she's like, you can also walk around your kitchen. I have a kitchen that has an in and an out, like both sides, but it goes in a full circle. I'm walking around my kitchen. I do about 4 laps, and now I'm having contractions where I have to stop and like lean over and bend on a chair. It progressed so quickly. So at this time, she's like, why don't you go upstairs and have resting labor, lay down? And I'm like, there's no way that I can rest with these contractions happening the way that they're happening. But I listen. I go upstairs. I lay with a pillow between my legs, and I'm laboring that way. I don't know if I was falling asleep, or I don't know if I was hypnobirthing. I don't know where I was mentally, but I know that I was focused. I didn't want to talk to anybody. Don't ask me questions. My husband was helping by doing this hip pressure thing, like pushing my hips in while I was having contractions. And so that was his duty, laying behind me and pushing my hips in whenever I had a contraction, and they were coming consistently. My son was sleeping in his room. I thought that she was going to come while he was asleep, so I thought that he didn't need to wake up. I didn't need to send him anywhere. And labor didn't get intense until he went to sleep. So I didn't want to wake him up, but he woke up naturally around like 6 a.m. And once he woke up, he, of course, wanted one of us. So Kev went in there, but I needed Kev. At this point, my mom was here downstairs with my sister. So at that point, I'm like, okay, mom has to take him because I need my partner back here, right? So he gets him dressed because now he's up. He hears people. He sees some lights. He knows things are going on. So he's like, what's happening right now? He doesn't want to go back to sleep. He typically wakes up around 7:38. He woke up a whole hour early. Kev got him dressed, took him downstairs. My dad came and got him. My mom wanted to stay, of course. So my dad came and got him. They went and had breakfast. He didn't even notice anything else. I feel like once Ever left, I knew that I could be louder. I didn't have to worry about scaring him or anything. And so we did have the tub. I was supposed to labor downstairs in the birthing pool, but by the time I had come up here, did resting labor, she was so far down and it was so intense that I was like, I'm not going back downstairs. So they brought the pool up, filled it up here, and around 7 a.m., got out the bed, got in the tub, and I was on hands and knees. I could feel her coming down. Let me just say, yes, natural labor was very, very intense. The most intense part being from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. was when I had really active labor with her like going down. But I had the best team ever and they prepared me. My doula, the one thing she told me is anytime that you're having a contraction, the first thing you're going to want to do is tense up, because that's what we do with pain. Like we flinch and we tighten up and we prepare ourselves. But she was like, the best thing you can do is in those moments, let everything go. Take note of your toes, of your fingers, of your face. Are you doing this? And if you're doing that, then most likely you're cramping your vaginal muscles. You're cramping up, right? You're tightening. Let go. Practice letting go. And so every time I felt myself about to tense up, I would just let go. And let go, let my muscles go, let everything go. And I would bear down. I wouldn't push, but I would like, as my contraction was happening, I would like kind of like just breathe down, kind of helping her come out. And so that's why I feel like my active labor was so fast, because I worked with the contractions. As painful as it got, as intense as it got, I worked with the contractions to push her down. I stayed present enough to do that much, like breathe her down and push her down. So when I got in the tub, I was doing that same thing. And again, this was obviously the most intense part, because now her head is coming down. Another thing that my doula prepared me for, she said, crowning is going to be one of the most intense moments, right? When you feel that, you have this need to push. She was like, push as much as you can, and when it gets too much, take a break. Think of it as a muscle. When you're stretching a muscle, you stretch to the point of pain and you wait. And you breathe, and then your muscle stretches a little more and you push it down a little bit more, right? Or you stretch it a little bit more. Think of it that way. That was the best thing she could have said to me, because as she started to crown, I felt that intensity. Okay? Trust me, it was intense. And I know what they mean by ring of fire, because your skin and your body stretching, your muscles are stretching intense. But I remembered what she said, and it was the best advice she could have given me. And so in that moment, I didn't just push with all my might. I pushed to the point where it felt like you're probably gonna tear if you keep pushing this way. So I stopped, and then I just breathed really, really deep. And not that it felt better, but it stopped being as intense. I don't know if that makes sense. It didn't feel better, but it just stopped being as intense, and it didn't feel like I would tear at that point. And so with the next contraction, I bared down again, and then her head came out. That was a release of intensity. And they were like, one more push and she should be out. So I waited. And then with the next contraction, I pushed again, and it didn't feel like this time. I think because my body had stretched to fit her head, I don't think my muscles had already adapted that quick. The body is amazing. Let's just say that. So the next push to get her out was not as intense. And I think she came out with 3 pushes. I think it was that one to get her crowning, the one to get her head out, and the one to get her body out. Unless I'm remembering this differently, like I don't remember pushing more than 3 times. Honestly 2, but let's give it 3. And she was out within, I don't know, however close my contractions were coming. I want to say she was out within 5 minutes. It was the most amazing experience. And as she came out, the rush of emotions and the rush of relief, I just started hysterically crying and hearing her cry and seeing her. And it was beautiful, y'all. Like if I could have dreamt it up, I couldn't have made it up better, written it better. It was a beautiful experience. Like, to see my doula and midwife around here just so calm. No one's rushing me to do anything. No one's invading my space. Like, I looked around, my midwife was taking a nap, like, while I was laboring, because she's like, you got this. Like, you know what to do. I am here when you need me. When that baby's coming out, when I need to coach you to make sure everything's okay, that you are healthy, I'm here. But this is natural. And I think that feeling of seeing her sleep, first of all, yes, I was jealous. Okay. I was like, God, what I would give to be this woman and just sleeping peacefully. But it also gave me a sense of like, if she's so calm right now enough to nap and sleep, then what I'm going through is the natural process. This is what's supposed to happen. And I think when you're in a hospital, the difference in the two that I can compare is like, being in the hospital, they have you hooked to things and they're coming in and they're checking you over and over, and everyone's like, I don't want to say high intensity, but like, being in a hospital just made me feel like I was sick. It just gave me the sense of urgency, and everything worried them, and they're constantly offering me meds. The woman who delivered my son looked at me in my face like, women don't have to go through this pain anymore. You don't have to make this decision. You don't have to do this. And like, pitying me and looking at me like, all right, well, you're making this stupid decision. That's what it felt like. It just was all this pressure. And I think as much as I wanted to stay focused on what my plan was, when you're in that vulnerable position, you can only hear stuff like that but so much. There's many women who try to have a home birth and are taken to the hospital, transferred to the hospital because it is first time birth, and they're exhausted and their body's not moving fast enough for them to keep up with. And when I say that, I know what that felt like, because I was exhausted. For my first birth, I was passing out between my contractions, like literally falling asleep and waking up to a painful contraction. So I knew at that point I just was not going to be able to stick it through how I wanted to. And that's what happens to a lot of women who plan to have a home birth and who wind up getting transferred to hospitals, is that they're exhausted. It very well could have been my situation had I tried to do a home birth or a birthing center. I'm not gonna lie, it's taken me all day to film this video. This is probably gonna be a real life example of how postpartum is going. I'm gonna try to get through this as much as I can, but little mama is up and moving right now. Anyway, and anywho, again, in hospitals, everything just feels really chaotic. It feels like your body doesn't know what it needs to do. It feels like there has to be medical intervention. We need to check you all these times, and we need to keep you on this IV, and we need to, it's like, make sure I'm drinking water, make sure I'm hydrated. The way I felt at ease and I just allowed my body to do what it did, I feel like that's why it progressed so quickly once I got into active labor. I wasn't worried. I wasn't being rushed. I didn't have the thought in my mind that my labor is taking too long. Y'all know I am big on emotional health, mental health, and how that can affect you physically. And if mentally I'm thinking about, I'm not moving fast enough, not only am I in pain, not only am I feeling vulnerable, not only am I experiencing this life-changing process happening right now, but now I'm also thinking, I'm holding everybody here up. I'm holding the doctors up. I'm holding everybody up. It's an insane thing to keep saying someone's labor is not progressing fast enough. What is fast enough when it's natural? It's a natural process. Do you know how many women were rushed? You know how many women were rushed into C-section because their bodies were not ready to have a baby? All because someone said their labor was not progressing fast enough. It's a shame because there are actual people who need help. But almost every pregnancy is treated as an emergency nowadays, you know? If you're not going into labor right at your due date, they are ready to induce you. They are ready to send you in. They are ready to start making you move on their schedule. Due dates are estimates. They could be wrong. For me, with my first child, with Ev, I was 41 weeks in one day. My body naturally went into labor when it was supposed to. With her, I delivered 3 days before her due date. There are cases where things go wrong, but that's not the case majority of the time. And then, okay, so this is the best part. After labor, I got out the pool, I got right into the bed, and then I slept. My mom held her and I slept. Me and Kev went to sleep for hours. My midwife checked me about an hour after labor. She didn't go right into doing the newborn check and then, checking me. She allowed me to relax. It was just amazing to be home already and to not have to travel or pack or do anything like that. Get in a car, put your baby in a car seat. I didn't have her in a car seat until after she was a month old. I did 3-3-3, but I extended that out, which means 3 days in the bed, 3 days on the bed, 3 days around the bed. I only got up to take showers, use the bathroom. My husband was extremely attentive, and dear God, I felt bad for him because he was dealing with the toddler. And Ev definitely had a rough time adjusting. He's still having a rough time adjusting to not being the only son, the only grandchild, the only nephew. He is adjusting to that. Thank God we haven't seen him really taking it out on the baby, but he's definitely, having a time with it. Those weeks where I was just up here just like connecting with her and resting my body and allowing my body to heal up. She's up and she's just laying there moving around. But we are doing our best to give him the space to adjust. We are doing the best to give ourselves time to adjust. Oh, and I did want to mention as well, I did not tear this time. It's amazing when you can feel what's going on in your body and you breathe and you relax. What can happen? I am just dream birth. Baby girl is amazing. So postpartum thus far, like as I mentioned, she turned 2 months yesterday. Postpartum thus far, 1,000% different than last time. I did not experience postpartum anxiety this time. That's heavily due to the fact that I actually rested. I stayed in this room. I've been catching up on all the Chicago shows. Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD. Anyway, I'm not even gonna go into that. So I've been binge watching shows, just feeding my baby, nurturing my baby, and nurturing my body, healing up. And I just got back into work, obviously just at the end of the month, shooting my first YouTube video. I started doing like little IG things. My healing. So with my first child, I told you guys I had a secondary tear. So it took me past the full 6 weeks to actually heal up. I tore my stitches. My midwife was so adamant about doing nothing, planning to do nothing, heal my body, let it heal. Think of the fact that that baby and that placenta came out of you. Your body is shifting. There's space and everything is shifting and trying to find its place. Lay down and give yourself time to heal. So last time I had to use the frozen Frida pads, the pop padsicles they call it, probably for at least the first month. And I was taking Advils. And when I forgot to change it in time, like to put a new cold one on or skipped my Advil, I knew because I was throbbing and so sore. Whereas this time around, I didn't even use one. I was sore in the beginning, but like not to the point of like pain. It was just sore. Like I knew something happened. I didn't have to take one pain pill. And when I did, I think it was for the cramping. I took it for the cramping, but not for the soreness. And I used regular pads. And I think I only had to use them for the first maybe 3 weeks. And I think by the time I got to the second week, I was down to liners. So completely different experience. And I feel like all of that played a huge part in my mental health and in my ability to connect with her. I think feeling the whole entire labor and being present the whole entire pregnancy and knowing that I was heading towards the labor of my dreams definitely changed the way that I felt when she got here. I felt a really euphoric feeling probably for that first month. Not to say that it's faded, but I just was in such a euphoric space. Definitely getting back to work has like snapped me into reality a little bit of the balance of it all. There are two now with two different ages and personalities, and my husband's an entrepreneur and so am I. Baby boy is still at home with us, so it's just like the balance of it all now is like, all right, we got to figure this out, right? Like it's time to get him into school. It's time to find outside help. The people we would trust with her and with him, they are just not available, so we have to find a sitter for nights that we want to go out. So there's just a lot that we are now ready to really figure out. We already started talking about it. She was exclusively breastfed for 6 weeks, and these past 2 weeks we have been trying to introduce a bottle. But she is in the middle of a leap, which means she's been really clingy to me. She's been needing me a lot more. So I don't want to keep pushing this bottle until she's kind of out of this fussy phase. But also, I don't want her getting stuck. I want to have the freedom of, having my husband feed her, my mom, being able to leave the house. So that's where we're at right now, trying to get her to take a bottle, which it's going to happen. It's going to happen because I got things to do. Okay? Love being your mama. I love Bonnie. We are still going to breastfeed, but I still need to, I need the freedom of going out with my girls, of going out with my man. I am happy to be back. I'm happy to just let you guys in on the personal side. We didn't even talk about like me sitting in my room. This is a little more relaxed. It allows me to be with her, allow her to still lay in her bed, and it's just comfortable. Postpartum has been all about comfort for me. I got dressed for the first time the other day to shoot a campaign. I've been in sweatsuits and my pajamas the whole time. So I've made it a thing to buy sweatsuits and pajamas that I really, really like. and that make me feel good. This is one of my favorites. I have this sweatsuit. Well, I have sweatsuits from this company in about 4 colors. They're the Comfort brand. I don't know if you've seen it like trending on TikTok. They're like so thick, oversized, very, very comfy. I'm gonna link this below because if you love sweatsuits like me, it's such a good fit. Make sure that you go to my LTK. I've been tagging everything when it comes to baby, all of my favorites, all the things I've been sharing in my home. We've redid the whole bedroom. I put that over on Instagrams. So if you want to catch up with like all the cutesy things, like what the nursery nook looks like and all the things we're using for her and loving for her, make sure that you're over on Instagram and TikTok. That's where I'm sharing everything. And on my LTK as well is where all the links. That's where you're gonna find all the links for everything. Is there anything else that I left out? This season is going to be fun because this season we're really going to tap into showing up as her. We have done so much in the last 3 seasons of healing and of talking about the really heavy stuff. And not to say we're not going to hit a point where I'm like, oh, there's something else there's another level that we need to discover and we're going to go back to talking about healing, of course. But I want to focus this on fun. Like I want to focus this on like, how are we showing up? How are we looking? What are we speaking into ourselves? What are we doing in the day to feel good? You know, what practices and habits are we implementing to actually show up as that girl? I want to talk a lot more about like what we're wearing and like vision boarding and manifesting. I really want to get into what was really fun for me before I realized I had so much to heal, because I want you guys to experience that too. And so I'm excited to do this with you guys. I'm excited for us to get excited about who we want to be and how we're showing up and the attitude and the looks, and we're going to talk about all that. Like, let's bring it into fruition. I'm excited and I hope you are too. Regardless of what's going on in this country, this will always be a safe space you can come to where we're going to talk about joy and we're going to talk about bettering our lives, the best that we have control over, right? I thank you for being here for the first episode of season 4. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and make sure that you turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. And until next time, which will be very soon, my loves, keep living in love, in light, and in your truth. Mwah. Bye-bye.